Okay, Councillor Mercer, I can confirm we're now live. You can proceed.
Okay. Right. I am Councillor Andy Mercer, and this is the meeting of the Development Control Committee of Northamptonshire County Council on the 4th of August 2020. The meeting is being held remotely via Zoom. Welcome to the meeting. The meeting is also being broadcast live on YouTube. To ensure the smooth running of this meeting, I would ask that all mobile phones are switched to silent or turned off. I would also ask that everyone keeps their microphone muted when not speaking. The meeting will operate in the following way. The Development Control Manager will introduce each item relating to applications and summarise the main points. Members of the public who have registered to speak will then be invited to address the committee one at a time, and members of the committee will have the opportunity to clarify any points raised during their address by questioning them if necessary. Members of the public are entitled to either answer or not answer questions that are put to them. Once all the public speakers have completed their statement, the Development Control Manager or an appropriate person will respond to the points made. Members of the committee will be given the opportunity to ask further questions of the Development Control Manager or his appropriate person regarding the application. Members of the committee will then make any comments they wish to regarding the application. Once all matters have been thoroughly debated, I will ask the committee to vote on the application based on the recommendations in the report. Should a member of the committee lose their connection to the meeting, I will adjourn the meeting whilst we try to get them back into the meeting to ensure that they have heard all the relevant facts before making the final decision. In other words, if one of the members of the committee loses their connection to the meeting, I will ask whoever's speaking to pause and, if necessary, ask them to repeat what they have just said before we restart. Should a member lose the connection permanently, they will unfortunately not be capable of taking part in the decision at the end of that item, should they manage to reconnect. Members of the committee have been given a number to use to contact Democratic Services if they experience any technical difficulties. As this meeting is expected to be a long one, I will organise comfort breaks at appropriate times. I'm expecting this meeting to run into the afternoon, so there probably will be a couple of comfort breaks. Right, that's my introduction, not my announcements. Can we have apologies for absence, please?
Through you, Chairman, we have apologies for non-attendance from Councillor Strachan with no substitute advised, and from Councillor Breeze with Councillor Osborne substituting for her.
Okay, so we're in fact one member short. Is that correct?
That's correct, Chair.
Can you confirm that all of the members who are expected to attend this meeting as members of the committee are actually present?
I can, Chair.
Thank you. Right, can we now have, well, I have a list of members of the public who are registered to address this meeting. I will list them out. Mr. Scott Howard of Fisher German LLP on behalf of Brian Rice Farms Partnership and the Brampton Heath Golf Centre. Mr. Matthew Dale Harris, Landmark Chambers on behalf of Boughton Parish Council. Mr. Nigel Weeks of Sterling Maynard Transportation on behalf of Boughton Parish Council. Councillor Mrs. Charlotte McCannis of Boughton Parish Council. Councillor Judy Shepherd of Northamptonshire County Council, the divisional member. Mr. Sean Brady of White Hills and Spring Park Residents Association. Mr. Steve Miller of White Hills and Spring Park Residents Association. Ms. Steph Allenby has asked to be replaced by her husband, Mr. Jeff Allenby. I have no problems with that. Mr. Luke Adams, Mr. John Cutler, Councillor Sam Rumans of NCC, Mr. Simon Barber, Mr. Philip Gray, Ms. Ruth Hemingway, and Mr. Patrick Cross. Members of the public also had the opportunity to submit written statements in advance of the meeting. I have received letters from Councillor Judy Shepherd, a letter from Councillors Sam Rumins, Mohammed Azizur Rahman, Councillor Gareth Eels, Councillor Terry Eels, and Councillor Samuel Kilby Shaw. The note of the comments to be made by Matthew Dale Harris have also been received in paper, in electronic form, and we have printed them out. The following person has registered to speak on item 7A, which is the Bretton Brook application. That's Ms. Maureen Durry of GP Planning, the planning agent for the applicant. Right, that's that done. We now move on to item 3, which is, first of all, declaration of members' interest, if any. Members are asked to note that under the new code of conduct, they only need to declare an interest at the start of the meeting if their interest has not been recorded in the register of interests. If any councillor declares such an interest, they must add it to the register within 28 days of the meeting. Councillors should be reminded of the seriousness of not declaring a disclosable pecuniary interest. If a councillor declares such an interest, they must remove him or herself for the whole of the item, irrespective of whether they are a member of the committee or not. When declaring an interest, councillors are asked to state the item on which they have an interest, the nature of the interest, and whether the interest is a disclosable pecuniary interest or non-statutory interest. If a member discovers or realises that they have an interest partway through the meeting, they should draw my attention to the fact, and then, having declared what that interest is, leave the meeting for the duration of that item. Now, are there any members who wish to declare an interest at this point? If you have an interest, unmute yourself and signal it, or raise a hand. I see none. I will take it that there are none. Right, that brings me on to the next sub-item, which is declaration of a whip, if any. I can state that there is no whip from the Conservative group. Is there a whip from any other group? Once again, if there is, unmute yourself and indicate it. No one has unmuted themselves and indicated or raised a hand. I will take that as meaning there is no whip on this item, on any of these items. Right, that brings me on to item 4, Chairman's announcements. This is the first of these meetings that we've done that's of any likely to be of any length, and I will arrange comfort breaks several points. I'm anticipating that the comfort breaks could be for between 10 and 20 minutes, depending upon how long we've been going at that point. I will attempt to not hold comfort breaks in the middle of any particular debate, but preferably at the beginning or end of a debate. I think that if anybody has to leave the room for any purpose, that is to leave the meeting, please signal to me and I will attempt to adjourn the meeting for a short while they deal with the issue. If anybody has to leave permanently, please notify me and Democratic Services. Right, that brings me on to item 5, which is the minutes of the meeting held on the 24th of September 2019. My word, that does seem a long time ago. I have got several comments to start with before I throw it open to members.
I mean, you can listen to him.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're going to.
Someone speaking. Right, starting with item 13 in the report. There's a paragraph that says the application proposed a building which would have an unacceptable and significant visual impact on the Priors Hall and Weldon Park flagship residential developments. Are officers able to find that? On the fourth line of that paragraph, it uses the word predicted. I believe that is a typing error and it should have been predicated. Can the officers check whether or not I'm correct on this matter? Mr. Watson?
Chair, can you just repeat the point where I'll find that word?
Well, in the officer report, or sorry, in the pack we've got, it's page 13. I can't give you a bullet point number because it's a long sequence. It's at the top of the page. And it's a paragraph that starts, the application proposed a building. Have you found it?
Yes, Chair.
Fourth line down near the middle, it says predicted. I think that should be predicated. Is it? Is it predicted or
probably a better word,
predicated?
Chair.
I'm not sure. It could be either.
I think what it's trying to say is that there were predictions that were taken of housing growth. And sorry about the.
Okay, well, if that one's correct, I'll move on to the next one, which is page 16. Second from bottom paragraph, page 16, it says the DCM explained that the applications. Can you see that, Mr. Watson?
Yes, Chair.
Right, on the fourth line, it says they indented. I think that should be intended.
That's correct.
So we'll correct that to intended. Right, next on page 19. Third paragraph from the bottom. Fourth line. It refers to Weston Power. I think that should be Western Power.
Yes, you're correct.
Okay, we'll correct that. On the next page, page 20, in the fifth bullet point, it refers to Weston Power again when it should be Western Power. Can you confirm that?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. That's the last correction I've got to the minutes. Can I ask members if they have any corrections that they wish to propose for the minutes beyond those that I've pointed out? I see no hands raised and nobody is unmuted to comment. I would therefore propose that we accept the minutes. Can I have a seconder for the acceptance of the minutes as amended? Thank you. That's Councillor Jill Mercer has signalled. Can I have a show of indication of whether or not everybody is happy with the minutes to be accepted? Can you raise your hands, members? I've looked round. Councillor Ty, are you happy with it? Can you raise your hand if you are? A bit higher. All I can see is the top of your head, Councillor Ty. Yeah, okay, right. That's a unanimous vote then. Thank you, members. Well, that brings us on to item 6A, which is the construction of a new road, the Northwest Relief Road, on land to the south of the A5199 Northampton Road between Brampton Heath Golf Centre and the River Nene, including 2 new roundabouts and links bridging over the River Nene to Brampton Lane and over the Northampton loop of the West Coast main line to connect with the Dallington Grange at land off A5199 Northampton Road. Can I ask Mr. Watson to present his report on this now, please?
Thank you, Chairman. I'm getting a bit of echo at my end. I don't know if you're getting that.
Can I suggest that someone at probably at One Angel Square turn off, mute one of their mics, please?
Come over to my screen.
Mr. Watson, you'll have to unmute Paul Hanson's mic before we can hear you.
Sorry, Chair. Yeah, I've moved to Mr. Hanson's seat because we're obviously having some echo problems with 2 in the same room. Right, begging your pardon for the delay. So as you say, this is an application for a new section of road. There is a full and long report, which I won't go through every detail for you because it's considerably long and you've had a chance to digest and read the report. In relation to the proposal, just to spell that out, we do have a plan which we can bring up on the screen just to help whilst we talk about the proposal. I think that will be up in shortly. So the application, the planning is to seek permission to construct a single carriageway road of approximately 1.9 kilometres in length. The new road will collect into the new roundabout on Sandy Lane at junction with the A5199 Northampton Road before connecting into another new roundabout at the Brampton Lane junction with the A5199 Welford Road. And here's that's the application area, which is indicated in red. So you can see on the left-hand side of the photo a railway line, and that's the general location. To the north of the application area is a golf course, the Brampton Valley Golf Course, and on the south there is the River Nene, which is meandering through the valley. And beyond that, the disused railway line, which is the former Market Harbour line, and then the start of the settlement at Northampton, at the end of Kingsthorpe and up into the wide towards the Buckton Fields area, which is now being developed. I think we have a general arrangement plan as well, which shows the lay of the road. That will come up shortly. So the new road is going to connect into Dallington Grange roundabout, which is a new roundabout to the east of Grange Farm, which will provide access to the proposed Dallington Grange residential development, which includes links onto the A428 at Harleston Road and the new Sandy Lane, which is all in Harleston Parish. And the proposed road scheme will also include a railway bridge, overbridge and culverts and earthworks and embankments, balancing ponds and other accommodation work. And then in paragraph 3.3 of the report, there's a lot more detail of what the scheme will include. Whilst the plan is coming up, Chair, it's obviously having some difficulties in getting that. I'll just say that this application is subject to an environmental impact assessment, and therefore it has been assessed in relation to EIA, and a number of specialist reports are accompanying the planning application, and all that information is on the website and has been in the public domain. Here is a general arrangement plan, which is now before you. So you can still see the red line area that we were discussing on the location plan. What you can now see is the green swathe with the grey in between of the road and the line that the road will take. So if you look over to the left-hand side of the plan, you see the end of the application area linked into what will be a new roundabout, and then a road which is heading off way to the north. That road.
Hi, Karen. It's Nora. Good morning to you.
Part of the Darlington Grange
Obviously on file.
completed.
I'm trying to trace them at the moment.
The road, this road will then link from that roundabout as part of Darlington Grange, one of the spine roads through Darlington Grange, heading to the north. That's from the south end to the north. The plan, by the way, isn't orientated north-south. It's actually, the golf course is to the west, and Northampton's to the east. If you look at the north sign in the top right-hand corner of the plan. So I misled you in the first instance. But the road is then heading in a northerly direction, across the side of the valley, not in the base of the valley, across the side of the valley, right tucked up against the golf course boundary, and to join the Welford Road and the Brampton Lane. And there's two roundabouts in the north. So a part of the old road will become disused in the future and truncated. And of course, this does involve crossing the railway line, so there's quite an engineering feat in relation to the crossing of the railway line, and you can see some embankments on the southern end of the route. And then you can also see a much larger extension of the application area to the east of that, where there are a series of lagoons to be constructed. Now, the advantage of those lagoons is twofold. One, that they're drainage lagoons which will assist with flood capacity in relation to the Darlington Grange housing development, and therefore there's a dual purpose. And secondly, the material to be extracted from those lagoons will be used to create the embankments on the road scheme. So consequently, it saves a huge number of vehicle movements having to bring in materials to construct the road, and also obviously savings on cost as well in relation to the scheme as a whole. So that's the gist of the proposal. There may well be questions later, and we can always come back to those plans if necessary, Chair. If I move on in relation to the report, there was an extensive consultation undertaken, and I think it's probably worth saying at this stage that this application started in June 2019. And so it's actually been out for consultation on 3 different occasions, because we've had additional information submitted twice. So we have to undertake extensive consultation on this application well over a year, and there's no doubt that everybody has had their opportunity to see and make comments in relation to this. And it's to that extent the application's has had a long process for people to digest what's proposed. In relation to the consultation responses, there is a lot of detail in there, I won't go through them individually, but what I will just say is that at the end of the day, the technical consultees of the borough and and Daventry have no objection. We do have some outstanding matters with the Environment Agency, and that's reflected in the advice in the report, which we'll come to later. The Highway Authority, there was some outstanding information required. Now, we have had a further response from the Highway Authority yesterday, and I did provide a supplementary report, and I apologize that it didn't come till last night, but I didn't get it until yesterday because they were waiting for further information. And basically that update report, which you may wish to look at in a minute, that just summarizes what has happened since in terms of consultation responses since we produced the report, and it majors really on the comments of the Highway Authority. So we may need to come to that in due course. There have been, of course, a considerable number of objections, and you have got obviously a large number of speakers that are registered to speak. So I won't go through those objections. They're set out in the report. People are concerned about the impact of the road and the details that have been submitted in the submitted application. In relation to the principles of the assessment of this application, it's important to make the point that there is support in principle for this road because it's listed within an adopted local plan, policy N12 of the West Northamptonshire Joint Course Strategy, which is about Northampton's transport network improvements. And this gives a very significant weight in favour of the application in relation to the planning policy and the development plan. And furthermore, this proposal is intrinsically linked to other key elements relating to the delivery of the West Northants Joint Course Strategy. So it's linked to the housing developments, etc. The traffic impact from the proposal is set out in the various documents, and there have been 3 reiterations. There was original transport assessment, transport assessment addendum, and then a revised transport assessment. And as I said, we now have some final comments from the Highway Authority in relation to those matters, and the Highway Authority is now satisfied in relation to the information provided, that the transport assessment, along with subsequent clarifications, are considered sufficient to inform the judgment on the matter. And the transport assessment, which updates previous assessments based on traffic flows extracted from Northampton's strategic transport model for both 2021 and 2031 situations, which consider the impacts of new growth, taking into account planned growth. And it's identified location routes where flows will increase and also where they will decrease. And the Highway Authority's view is it's important to maintain an objective and holistic view on such matters and consider that the new road as part of a complex and intricate road network system. In respect of other impacts from the roads, which we've considered in the report, obviously we've considered the impacts of noise, and we've been to the environmental health officers at Daventry and at Northampton. And there is detailed information in the neg. Noise, and we've been to the environmental health officers. There's information from the Northampton environmental health officers in the report. There is detailed information in the neg. Noise, and we've been to the environmental health officers. Sorry, Chair, I just paused it because I've got some repeating at my end.
Yeah, I can hear it.
Not quite sure why that happened, but we hopefully have resolved that now. In terms of noise, you can see in relation to where the road has been located, it's as far away from residential properties, the existing residential properties as possible. It's tucked away across the gate by the golf course. And so the distance factor, the fact that they will be using low noise road surfacing, etc. And there will be landscaping undertaken between the road and the residential properties. Those mitigation measures deal with the principles of noise, in my judgment. And also air quality has been considered in some detail. One of the reasons why the application was further delayed was for further assessment under the air quality information work that was reassessed, and the environmental health officers have seen that information. And Northampton Borough Council, of course, who's got the most residents affected, has accepted the outcome of the revised information in terms of air quality. In relation to landscape character, then obviously this is open countryside at the moment. Some of the members have managed to visit the site, and you will see that there is bound to be some impact in relation to landscape. That's inevitable when you create a new scheme. But then again, you've got to remember that the Dallington Grange development upon the hill to the south, that's all going to change that area as well in relation to built development. In relation to biodiversity, we've looked at that, and this scheme, like any scheme, will have some impacts. Those have been taken into account. There's a requirement for further mitigation. A lot of the mitigation would be within the overall application area. Some of that land will be going to adjacent landowners, and the County Council is working with those adjacent landowners that will receive the land back. That's the area principally where those lagoons are going to be, to ensure that that can be delivered, so we ensure a net gain for biodiversity in the long run. And if necessary, the County Council as a landowner can mitigate by providing extra delivery of biodiversity off-site, for example, at the Pitsford Country Park. And we're proposing conditions to deal with that in the report. In terms of archaeology, that's also being looked at, and the archaeologists are satisfied that providing the appropriate conditions are imposed, that can be appropriately dealt with. There was comments about the Northampton to Market Harbour railway line and whether or not this proposal would affect that. One of the roundabouts is actually on the junction at the moment where the railway line currently obviously is already truncated by a highway. There's no firm proposals for that, and we don't see how this proposal makes any more impact on that potential delivery. That would always have to be solved at a future date if at any time that was to come forward. So I think what we're saying in our conclusion, Chair, is that any scheme like this will have some impact. There are some impacts in terms of landscape, traffic, noise and air quality, undoubtedly. However, such impacts are not almost unavoidable in the case of new roads. And the key consideration is whether these impacts, both individually and cumulatively, in relation to the scale or the significance of these impacts, are such that it negates the development plan policies which support the new road and its ability to help manage the situation in respect of existing traffic growth in the wider northwest Northampton, as well as supporting the growth of Northampton. And the conclusion in respect of weighing the overall planning balance is that the proposal is considered acceptable, having regard to the development plan policies and other material considerations, but subject to the detailed recommended conditions in Appendix B. And there will need to be some additional conditions, Chair, in relation to the Highway Authority's comments, and perhaps in due course from the Environment Agency's comments. So just bear that in mind in relation to this matter. And the advice is that because there are the outstanding issues with the Environment Agency, and we've only just now received the comments from the Highway Authority. Having said that, we've now got conditions from the Highway Authority, so we know how we can move that forward, that the application be approved with the outstanding matters delegated to the Assistant Director, yourself, the Chairman, the Deputy Chairman, and myself as the Development Control Manager. Chair, that's a quick summary of the application and the proposal. As I said earlier on in the report, I did produce an update report for you in relation to the Highway Authority's comments, which has been circulated. So you may wish to have a look at that if members have not all seen that at this stage.
Thank you, Mr. Watson. I indeed plan to do that. I'm going to, at this point, pause the meeting for 10 minutes to give members who have only recently received that update an opportunity to read it, since it only went out at 9:30 last night. So,
Chairman, before you do that, having heard that and having read the papers, I've got some serious, not just on these late papers, which I didn't see till 9:45 this morning, and therefore haven't had the chance to read properly. I was going to propose that we defer the whole item, because plainly in some of the, before people speak, because that would give them the chance to speak at the next meeting if there were one. I was going to propose we defer the whole item. It's apparent that there's a concern about this Saturn assessments. There's also concern that the consultation, I know there were various ones, but the consultation which is being used to say that the public in favour was in fact one for the whole Northwood Orbital Road, which is no doubt a good project. And combined with the fact of the late papers, I'm like to propose this item is not ready for assessment by us yet, with a number of items still to be, and I can think of others still to be resolved. And I'd like to propose that we defer the whole item to the next meeting.
Well, before I ask for a seconder, I'd like to ask Mr. Edmonds, if he's around somewhere, James Edmonds, if this is within the Constitution to propose deferral at this stage before the debate. Normally you ask for a deferral after the debate has started. And ask Mr. Edmonds, or perhaps Mr. Hanson can reply as to whether it's legal at this point.
I want to avoid people speaking and therefore being denied speaking at another meeting. So it is something conventionally we do.
Yeah, I just want to check the legality before I ask for a seconder. Can Mr. Edmonds or
Sure.
Mr. Hanson reply?
Chair, obviously I'm not a lawyer, so I can't give you legal advice. However, I would say that that a proposal has been received from the floor. I think as chair, you need to ask for a seconder, but it's your decision as chair as to how to manage this meeting.
Okay, well, can I ask the solicitor then the legality of accepting a deferral at this early stage in the item?
Thank you, Chair. I'd agree with the advice you've received from Democratic Services Officer. It's within your gift to manage the meeting.
Okay, well, I will ask, is there a seconder? Then I will ask for a vote of members on whether to defer this item at this early stage. Is there a seconder?
Yes, I'll second it.
I've seen two people. Right, in that case, then I'm going to go around robin, around the membership of the committee, asking whether or not people are in favour of deferring this item for a subsequent meeting. I would guess probably in September. First of all, Councillor Andrew Kilbride. Can you tell me if you're in favour or against? Andrew?
Yeah, I'm caught between the two. I would like to read the papers in more detail. I'll probably go in favour of a defer.
Okay, thank you. Right, Graham, you proposed it, so I'll take it you're in favour of deferral.
Yeah, no,
Agreed.
Councillor McCutcheon, I think I saw you seconding, did I not? So you're in favour of deferral. Can you unmute and just confirm that verbally, please? You're still muted. I can't hear you. In fact, I think, Mr. Hanson, is there any way you can unmute Councillor McCutcheon?
I am trying to do that, Chair. That's it, won't let me unmute him.
It's not coming unmuted.
Can he raise his hand?
Councillor McCutcheon, if you're in favour, raise your hand. Right, I'll take that as
I think
in
that's
favour.
clear, Chair.
Councillor Jill Mercer, raise your hand if you're in favour of deferral. Are you opposed to deferral?
I would like to read these extra papers. Yes, I'm in favour as well.
Right. Councillor Steve Osborne, are you in favour of deferral?
Deferral.
Okay. Councillor Michael Tye, are you in favour of deferral? Can't hear you. Or can you raise your hand if you're in favour of deferral, please?
Okay.
Still in favour, okay. Councillor Malcolm Waters, are you in favour of deferral? Raise your hand if you are. You are. I will vote in favour. That makes it unanimous. This item is deferred. I'd like to apologise to everybody who came along to speak on this item, but the members have decided that they need extra time to read the late submissions that have occurred. Please accept my apologies.
Councillor Mercer, can I just indicate that I'm going to leave the meeting at this stage, if that's okay, because that was the only item that I was due to speak on.
That would seem very sensible, and I would suggest that those members of the public who are attending because they were wanted to speak or view this item, this would be sensible for them to leave at this point. And I'll hold the meeting up for another 2 minutes to give them a chance to leave. Councillor Shepherd.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Mercer. I'm going to leave the meeting as well at this particular juncture. Thank you very much.
Okay, it was good to see you. I hope you're well.
I am. Thank you very much. Nice to see you all too.
I will give a couple of minutes for people to leave.
100%
Chairman,
is
my proposal did include for the rerun of the Saturn. I'm not aware of the full technical details, but this is the transport assessment. That's been asked for by several contributors to the consultation.
We've got someone else in the background at the moment. You would. We had someone else in the background. So, Councillor Graham Lorman, you would are proposing that the Saturn modelling be rerun with the mitigation as it's proposed in the latest paperwork. Is that correct?
That was part of my proposal, yes.
Right, well, I'll take that as a separate proposal because they're two separate issues. There is a proposal from Councillor Lorman that we request that the Saturn modelling be rerun with the latest version of the proposed mitigation. Is there a seconder for that proposal? Could someone... Oh, Councillor Osborne, are you seconding?
I can do.
Okay.
I haven't even read the papers, but like Councillor Lorman, I consider it totally wrong to have papers introduced that I haven't even read, and to have a meeting where you're going to have a break to read papers, then make decisions. So even though I haven't read the papers on what he's proposing, I will willingly support him because of the principle of it.
Right, okay, so we've got a proposer and a seconder. Once again, I'm going to go round the room. Well, first of all, I'm going to go to the officers and check whether this is a valid motion. Is it, Mr. Hanson?
Sorry, Chair, we've already had a vote to defer the discussion of the item, so I'm slightly confused as to where we are now.
Well, Councillor Lorman, at the same time as requesting a vote on deferral, also simultaneously in the same statement requested that we ask for the Saturn model to be rerun with the updated data. I'm therefore saying, can you confirm that it is valid for us to make that motion at this moment?
I think, Chair, if it's all right with you, I'd like to bring in Chris Bond at Phil's suggestion.
Certainly.
To just give some narrative to that before the committee take a view.
Certainly, that's why I asked your opinion. So, Chris, can you unmute yourself and put yourself on video?
Regrettably, Chair, I'm unable to come on to video. Hopefully you can hear me.
We can hear you, yes.
Thank you. In respect of the legality of taking this motion over the other, I defer to others. In respect of rerunning the Saturn model to accommodate the mitigation which is proposed, in my judgment, which may differ to other judgments made by others, I do not consider that it would actually change the conclusions that would actually be drawn from the exercise. However, if it is a valid motion, then it is in the committee's gift to request the additional information.
Thank you. So it just comes down to a question of whether or not it is a valid motion. I'll go back to Mr. Hanson.
Chair, can I request a short adjournment while we look into that, please? Because I think we need to make sure we get this right.
I'm happy with that. I'd far rather get this right from the legal point of view than go ahead and then have someone complain in a week's time it was an invalid motion. So I will adjourn the meeting for 5 minutes. Will that be sufficient?
Yes, please, Chair.
Okay. Signal to me when you're ready to come back again. That means that at 10:47, I'm formally adjourning the meeting for 5 minutes for officers to consult on the legality of that motion.
Yeah.
We're not live, Andy. We're on just
I know
on the
we're not.
meeting. Yeah.
What?
What I was going to say is that given that this
don't
is
I
such
know
a
it?
controversial application, I
Councillors,
want to pin it down.
councillors, we are still live. Can you mute yourselves, please?
What?
Chair, I've taken a view from officers in the room and I'm ready to give advice now if other members are present.
Well, I said I'd adjourn it for 5 minutes and they've got another 2 minutes. People have been nipping out to relieve themselves. So I'll wait until 10:52 before I call the meeting back to order.
Steve Osborne made a statement that he had read the papers.
I'll check everyone's back. Right, I'm calling the meeting back to order now. The adjournment is now over. Can Mr. Edmonds, can you do a quick check and make sure that we haven't? We're still one member back, not yet back. Councillor Malcolm Waters hasn't yet returned to his seat.
Yeah, no, I think everybody else is here, Chairman.
Well, can you give us the advice that you have received?
Yes, Chairman. So my advice to the committee is that you have passed a unanimous vote to defer this item. It would not be appropriate to then take further votes on this item. The officers will take on board the points that have been raised by members at the meeting so far, and the matter will return for consideration by the committee at the appropriate juncture. But my advice is that having voted unanimously to defer the item, it would not be appropriate for the committee to take further votes on the item at this stage.
Okay, thank you. I suspected that was the case, which is why I asked for the advice. Right. That means that we now go on to item 6B. At this stage, we're still missing Councillor Malcolm Waters, but I intend to continue anyway at this stage. This is County Council planning applications determined and outstanding. Can Mr. Watson please present the report on this and summarise the issues, please?
Thank you, Chair.
Let me just turn.
We're just sorting out the echo.
I think you've got it sorted. It's pretty good.
So this is the list of applications to do with Regulation 3 development, which have been determined since the last committee, and those which are still outstanding. So we're on the first page, which is page 3 of the paper document that I have in front of me. And then on to page 4, various schemes. Not a very big list because we deal with very few Regulation 3 applications now, since we get very few applications in relation to schools. And then at the bottom of page 4, the current applications that are outstanding, the one that we've just been discussing, and then there's one at Boughton Primary School and another one at Kingsthorpe Grove Primary School, but those are nothing of any substantial substance, Chair. So it's really for your information, and unless anybody's got any questions.
Are there any questions from members? Unmute yourself if you have a question on any of these items. I cannot see anybody signalling that they have a question. Okay. We now need to vote on noting the contents of this report. I'm, from the chair, proposing that we accept the report. Is there a seconder for that? Okay, that's Councillor Lorman has signalled that he was second. I will now go around the members and ask them to confirm that whether they support or oppose the motion to accept the report. Councillor Andrew Kilbride. Can you raise your hand? For it, thank you. Councillor Graham Lorman, you for it. Councillor Arthur McCatchen, for it. I'm for it. Councillor Jill Mercer, for it. Councillor Steve Osborne. Thank you. Councillor Michael Tye. Thank you. Malcolm Waters is currently missing, presumably still going to the facilities. That is, I count that as 7 votes in favour and 1 missing. Okay, so the committee has noted that report. That now brings us on to minerals and waste planning applications, item 7A. We have a planning application to vary an extant planning permission at the Gretton Brook Road site and the Earls Tree Industrial Estate in Corby. Can Mr. Watson
Chairman, at this stage, should somebody try to contact Councillor Waters, otherwise he won't be able to.
Yeah, I suppose before we
take part in
start,
this item.
can someone try phoning Councillor Waters' phone number? I wonder if I've got it. Hold on a moment.
Chair, I can do that.
Well, I can't. Once Mr. Watson starts giving his report, then it's no longer possible for Councillor Waters to participate in the meeting. So I'm going to pause while you try and phone him.
Chairman, did you hear what I said?
No, what?
Surely it doesn't preclude him from participating in the meeting. It precludes him from voting in the meeting.
Well, he can, if he misses part of the officer presentation, then he will be no different to a member of the public who has the right of audience, but not the right to vote. And at the moment, we're trying to get him back into the meeting.
Chair,
Mr.
I've just
Hanson?
spoken to him. He's on his way.
Okay, good. Well done, Mr. Hanson. Right, we have Councillor Waters back. Councillor Graham Lorman has put up an interesting picture. Right, Mr. Watson, can you now present your report on the Grettenbrook application, please?
Okay, thank you, Chairman. So this is an application to vary conditions on existing consents at the Grettenbrook Road industrial estate, where there's various current industrial activities taking place. In relation to the history of this, the permissions for energy from waste was first granted in 2008, and then a subsequent application in 2009 to put up an additional extension to the building was permitted. And this is the basis of a facility that would deal with 120,000 tons per annum of waste. That applications was approved, or both of them were approved, and the applications, well, or the permissions stood there for a little while. In 2013, there was variations, or a non-material amendment variation made, and then in 2014 there were further variations made to the consent, and the original consents were also implemented. So we had a situation where the original consents were implemented, foundations were dug for the new buildings, but the whole plant hasn't yet been built out. This has been the common theme with energy from waste, whilst developers have been endeavouring to get the appropriate finance from the banks to deliver and build out these facilities. And a lot of it has hinged around the technology and the ability, or the confidence that the banks have got in relation to the plant being able to operate effectively. And some plants have had problems in the past, and obviously that's made them very nervous. What we're being asked to do here really is very minor variations. The building, as agreed, the applicant is controlled by condition 2, which restricts the drawings, and the proposal is that There'd be small changes to the size of the building. It's no more than 3 meters in change in height. And that's because of the sort of technology that the current potential investor, who's looking very positive and would appear very serious about developing this facility, about the technology that investor wishes to utilize. And the other change in relation to the proposal is that the 120,000 ton limit, which was controlled by condition 3, that be increased by 34,000 tons to 154,000 to ensure that the plant that they intend to install can operate at its maximum efficiency. And in fact, the building heights, just to reconfirm, are 3 meters higher than permitted at the eaves and 4 meters at the ridge. But the approved stack isn't altered, it remains at 25 meters. So the report describes thermal processing process, and there is a visual figure in the report which was produced by the applicants. I just thought you might find that interesting, so I included it in this report, of a bubbling bed combustor. In relation to the consultations, there was no objection in principle from Corby Borough Council and the Corby Environmental Health, although they did ask for further information, but those matters were addressed. And we also consulted East Northamptonshire Council Planning because it's so close to the border. They had no objections in principle, and their Environmental Health also provided comments. Environment Agency had no objections. There was some requirement for further information from the Highway Authority, but those have been supplied, and those have now been, the Highway Authority's position is now resolved. Now, there has been objection from Gretton Parish Council, and those are listed in paragraphs 311 to 315 of the report. They talk about the traffic and highways impact, noise, smell and pollution, and the height of the buildings. Dean and Deanthorpe Parish Council, I've got it recorded here as no response received, but I believe I did receive a response very late on, which said that they were also objecting to the application. I didn't receive anything from Weldon. And the local councillors also were involved in this application, including Corby councillor Kevin Watts, County Councillor Julie Brookfield, Councillor John McGee, and Councillor Chris Stamborough. They were all asking for this application to be brought before the committee. In this instance, the assistant director determined that he would bring it before the committee, albeit that at the end of the day, this plan has permission in principle, has already been partially implemented, and these are relatively minor changes. So our assessment of the report is that these changes that are proposed will not have any significant impact in terms of traffic, in terms of air quality, and indeed there was further air quality information produced. I insisted on that because of the fact that the original application was an EIA and that there were some changes to the technology. So I wanted to make sure that that was properly covered. Those matters are dealt with in the report about the emissions to air, the traffic and highway safety, and the minor changes to the alterations of the building. In terms of landscape impact, that was raised by Gretton Parish Council as well. But this is a very small change, and indeed there's much larger buildings and stacks nearby, including the Corby Power Station at 70 metres and the Rockingham Speedway as well, although that may well be demolished at some stage. So our conclusion, Chair, is that there's no justification to refuse this application and that it should be approved in accordance with the advice.
Thank you, Mr. Watson. Before I throw it open to members for any questions on your report.
Chair, you're muted.
Oh, to my screen, I'm not. I didn't think I was muted. Mr. Watson, before I throw it open to members for any questions on your report, and before we get to public speakers, I've got one question that puzzles me, and that is that there's an increase of 34,000 tonnes in permitted capacity, but that is supposedly leading to a vehicle movements per day reduction. Can you explain how they've gone from vehicles that only carried 8 tonnes each to ones that carried 20 tonnes?
Chair, only that the original application, that was the weight of the vehicles, the anticipated load that they were expected to bring in. So it was a bit strange at the time, although clearly that was the applicant's proposals. So now that these payloads will be 20 tons, then you will need less vehicles to bring in the same amount of waste. And in fact, if you increase the amount of waste as they have applied to do, you still, on the mathematics, work out that the number of vehicles are quite a bit less than if you were bringing them in 8-ton payloads.
Curious.
So it works itself out in the maths.
Before we go to the public speaker, are there any questions for Mr. Watson from members of the committee? If there are, Councillor Lorman.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, we've only got in the papers the amended condition. Can Mr. Watson tell us what the original traffic conditions were? Because a number of comments from Gretton Council refer to traffic, and we haven't got the original condition to compare. Presumably, they're worried about Corby Road, but nothing to base our decision on, as we haven't got the original conditions in the papers.
But Chair, the original conditions basically required appropriate highway improvements, and that the traffic directions be restricted to prevent traffic going through Gretton. And we've got conditions that prevents it going through the minor roads towards Gretton or any villages beyond Gretton. So that's controlled by current condition. And the scheme of highway improvements that were required included visibility, the tweaking of the visibility displays, ensuring that they were deliverable, and some works to the entrance, not so much the display itself, but to the once you get inside the site, to ensure proper vehicular circulation. But this is a big area. It's already being used by HGVs that deliver inert waste for inert waste recycling. That's taking place on the site. There's also a concrete batching plant on the site, and there's other activities. And all the vehicles that come in and out use the spine roads through Corby to get to and from the major road network. This is part of an extension of the Illstrees industrial estate. It's an older area of industry tucked in the woodland. It's a bit of an anomaly, but there's no issue in relation to the ability of the highway network to accommodate these types of vehicles. And as I say, the conditions that we had on the original consent restricted movements through the village of Gretton, ensured the appropriate highway safety improvements at the access.
Thank you, that's fine. It
helps,
was just
Chair.
not having it. Yeah, just didn't have the information. It's fine when I hear it like that. Thank you.
Are there any other members who have questions for Mr. Watson before we... I can see Councillor Kilbride. Councillor Kilbride, unmute yourself.
Thank you, Chairman. Just one for you, Phil. What is the weight limit the roads can carry? Is it well in excess of 20 tonne?
Well, yeah, because the vehicles themselves add another sort of, I don't know, 12, 15 tons. So I think that, you're way over 30 or 35 ton or above in terms of what the actual roads, legally, what can go on roads, yes.
The legal limit is 44 tonnes per vehicle. Are there any other questions from members? I can't see any. In that case, can we have the first and only public speaker on this one, which is Miss Maureen Durry of GP Planning.
Just admitted her, Chairman.
Is she going to be visual? Oh, yes, she is. Miss Durry, you have 3 minutes. Miss Darry,
Hello, can you hear me, Chairman?
yeah, we can hear you. You have 3 minutes from now.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity to address the committee. I don't intend to take up much of your time this morning. As you have heard, the principle of a waste facility in this location is long established. The original permissions have been implemented, but the facility is not yet operational. The applicant, Corby Waste to Energy Limited, is very serious about this proposal and seeks minor variations to the extant planning permissions to maximise the efficiency of the plant. This is achieved, as you've heard, through an increase in tonnage throughput by 34,000 tonnes per annum and an increase in the height of the building. It should be noted that the stack height will not be increased, and an updated air quality assessment has been undertaken, which demonstrates that proper dispersion can be achieved at the existing and permitted height. Emissions will be controlled through an environmental permit, which the applicant will secure through the Environment Agency. The increased tonnage will not result in additional HGV movements, and Corby Waste to Energy will implement the previously permitted highways improvements that you've just heard the officer describe. Referring back to the original conditions, condition 14B of the extant planning permission requires the vehicle routing scheme to be agreed, and Corby Waste to Energy Limited will supply a routing agreement and sign up to that as well. So in concluding, an assessment of the proposal against the pertinent policies in the development plan confirms that it will meet waste policy need requirements and will not give rise to any unacceptable adverse environmental or amenity impacts. And we thank the officers for their recommendation of approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Are you prepared to answer any questions from members, should there be any?
Yes, certainly.
Right. Are there any members who have questions for our speaker? If there are, please raise your hand. I see none. Okay, well, in that case, then we're finished with you. You can withdraw now. Thank you very much for presenting your comments.
Thank you, Chair.
Right. I now open the debate for members to comment on this application. Who would like to go first?
Can I propose that we accept officers as Vice Chairman?
You can. Is there a seconder for that motion?
I'll second that, Chair.
That has been seconded. I will go round the committee. Right, Councillor Kilbride, are you in favour or against the motion?
In favour, Chair.
Okay. Councillor Graham Lorman, are you in favour of the motion? Okay. Councillor Arthur McCutcheon, are you in favour of the motion? Yes. Councillor Jill Mercer, are you in favour of the motion?
Or
Yep. Councillor Steve Osborne, are you in favour of the motion? Yes. Councillor Michael Tye, are you in favour of the motion? Can you put your hand up or unmute? Oh, you have. Okay. Councillor Michael Walters, are you in favour of the motion? Can you raise your hand or speak? Councillor Malcolm Walters?
Yes, in
Okay.
favour.
Right, I'm in favour as well. That makes it unanimous. That motion is carried. We now go on to item 7B on the agenda, which is the minerals and waste planning applications determined outstanding. Can Mr. Watson present the report and summarise the issues for us, please?
Thank you, Chair. So this starts on page 25 of the paper report, and this is the minerals and waste applications we've dealt with or are still outstanding since the last meeting. This is a much longer report, so we start on page 1 with 2 applications there. In fact, the top one, the Corby Energy Recovery Facility at Shelton Road, was probably the last one that came to committee. Then we've got page 26, number of decisions there. one withdrawn, a couple, well, two of them that were withdrawn there. Page 27. Number there, you can see a number by Mick George. He's pretty active in the county now. And on page 28. On page 29, we go to, has anybody got any questions on those, Chair, before I move on to the outstanding applications?
I was going to ask at this point, is there any member who wishes to raise a question about any of these applications that have been determined or withdrawn? I see no signal that anybody has. Mr. Watson, can you go on to the next?
Page 29, the outstanding applications. So there are a few more of these. In terms of bringing them to your attention, you've got numbers 1933, 1934 and 1935, all from a company called Ingrebourne Valley Limited. It's in the proposals relating to Elton Quarry and Warmington. Elton obviously is outside the county, but it's got that, picked up that name because it's part of the Elton estate land. And those have had considerable objections and will come to the committee in due course, quite possibly in September. Then we move on to 2017, an application for a industrial and commercial building at Hardwater Road, Wollaston. That one has received a number of objections and we expect that to come to committee also in September. Then there's a couple of others on the page, including the one that's we've just dealt with at the bottom of the page, which was reported to this committee. We move on to page 30. We have Mick George has made two applications which are linked to the same proposal. It's to extend the working hours at Wakeley Quarry by 1 hour in the evening and in an extension of 3 hours on Saturday afternoon. That one has also involved considerable objections and will come to committee in due course. Then there's a couple more at the bottom of that page. One of them at the bottom of the page, DM Metals, the metal recycling activity, that's also generating objections. This is a former Kirby Lodge IVC facility. That's the in-vessel composting facility. That's further along Grettonbrook Road than the application you've just dealt with. That's that one's generating objections, and we expect that might come to committee as well later on, probably in October. And then just to cap it off, we've got three more from Ingrebourne Valley. The reason they submitted three more relating almost to the same site is that the permissions currently ran out at the end of July this year, so they've had to put in for applications for extension in case the other applications, which I was telling you at the start of this item, in case they got refused in due course. Those are about just continuing and finishing off what they've already got permission for, whereas the new applications include an extension of the quarry. So, Chair, if anybody's got any questions on any of those, then I'm happy to try and answer them.
Has any member got a question? Councillor Gilmerson.
Would it be normal, since you've got sort of 6 applications on the same site, would you normally take them all at the same time, or are they in 2 batches as indicated here?
Well, we would probably have to split them to some degree. We haven't really thought that one through yet, but you probably could deal with the first 3 that were submitted last year, in fact, first. But these other 3, because they are only extensions of the current permission for a short period, whereas the other applications are for an extension and for additional quarrying area and for extensions in time to match that future quarrying area permission if it's granted. So these are the last 3 are asking for 2 years maximum. The other ones are asking for a further 10 or 12 years, you see. So we'll probably deal with them in 2 batches in due course. That would seem to be the sensible thing.
I do.
Are there any further questions or comments from members? I see none. Right, in that case, then I'm going to propose that we accept the report. Is there a seconder for that?
Seconded, Chairman.
Thank you. I will now go for a round robin to get the votes of the members. Councillor Andrew Kilbride.
Agreed, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Graham Lorman.
Agreed.
Councillor Arthur McCutcheon. Thank you. I proposed it. Councillor Jill Mercer has already got a thumb up. Councillor Steve Osborne, thumb up. Councillor Michael Tighe, in favour. Councillor Malcolm Waters, in favour. Right, that is unanimous. Thank you, members. Right, that now brings us on to item 8A, Town and Village Green applications determined and outstanding. Can I ask Mr. Watson to present his report on this?
Chair, I don't think there's anything to report in essence, that there's been no business in relation to Town and Village Greens since we last met. So that's just for your information, really. Nothing to report.
Okay, well, in that case, then we will move on. That brings us on to item 9, which is meeting dates. We've got a date for the 8th of September, 22nd of September. Can I ask a quick question to officers? Are they still comfortable with proposing those dates, given that we've just deferred the Northwest Relief Road?
Yeah, it's highly unlikely that we will use all of those dates. They're effectively asking the committee to agree dates that can be utilised if required in future. So at this point in time, officers will need to determine when they're ready for that item to come back to committee for decision.
Okay, so in other words, you're comfortable with that set of dates still? In that case, I'd like to propose that we agree to the officers' request for those dates to be allocated for Development Control Committee meetings. Is there a seconder for that proposal? Councillor Jill Mercer seconded that. I will therefore go around again the committee asking for the votes of members, starting with Councillor Andrew Kilbride.
In favour, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Graham Lorman.
That's fine, except a plea to avoid the 22nd of September. It's my birthday, but there we go.
Councillor Arthur McCutcheon. Thank you. I'm in favour. I proposed it. Councillor Jill Mercer's got a thumb up. Councillor Steve Osborne, thumb up. Councillor Michael Tighe. Councillor Michael Tighe, your vote? Are you in favour? Oh, you're in favour. Councillor Malcolm Waters, your hand is already up. Yes, that is unanimous. Okay. Right, that means that is carried unanimously. I have no urgent business that has been notified to me. That means, as far as I'm concerned, we've reached the end of the agenda. And at 11:26, I can therefore say that the meeting is complete and closed. Thank you, everybody, for your attendance. It's not gone the way I anticipated it would, but there again, few do. We will be meeting again shortly, and I look forward to seeing you then. Have a nice day.